Ocean Hills at its best is when we are in it together.
Hey, it is so good to be here. I'll tell you why it's good, because I came and I didn't recognize anything, and I didn't recognize everyone, and to me that's a sign of life and health and growth, and then it's so encouraging. It was hard for us to leave our community, and so you never know what's going to happen, so it's good to be back. So thanks for welcoming myself. My wife's here. My new wife, my same wife. Awkward. And my youngest, Walker, is here. My oldest, Gage, who's now 10, soon to be 11, woke up this morning with a fever. Yeah, so he's home. Well, for those of you that I don't know, a couple ground rules. I speak fast, so pay attention. And I'm probably going to go about 2 hours. So turn off those pagers. We have pagers in order. No. My name is Matt, and I am the pastor of the Well Covenant Church in Corvallis, Oregon. And Corvallis is a small town, about 50,000. You actually never pass through Corvallis unless you're going to Corvallis or you're heading to the coast. We're about an hour from the coast. It's about 40 minutes north of Eugene, which we're going to call the bad city because they are the ducks, and we are the beavers. Okay, so point number one, ducks bad, beavers good. And Corvallis sits about 90 minutes south of Portland. And so we've been able to connect with Johnny Gaspardius a couple times, and it's been great to see him, so that's really fun. Anyway, let me open with a word of prayer, and we'll get to it. So God, this morning, we recognize that you're as close as a whisper. That you were here moving before we even came. And as far as I understand it, God, your desire is to connect with us on a deeper level. And so I invite you on behalf of this community, the Ocean Hills community, to connect with us this morning. And as we open your word, as we reflect on our lives, we invite you to speak. Give us freedom, God, from those things that might hold us back from hearing what you have for us to hear, or to experience what you have for us to experience. So God, may the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be pleasing unto you. Amen. So, coming this October, Kirsten and I and the boys will have been in Oregon for 4 years, which is hard to believe. And I know you're saying, how can you get so much thinner up there and less gray hair? It's the water. But one of the differences I've noticed in Oregon, let me just describe a little bit about how Oregon. And I actually had never even been to Oregon before we started, they invited us up there. So we have a leadership team at the Well, and we're a small-ish mega church of 125. And we now have a staff of 3. It was a staff of 1 for years, and just this last year we added 2 more, so that's exciting. We're growing. At least our staff is growing. And the difference, here's one of the differences I noticed right away. We had a leadership team. We meet every month, and our leadership team, just like here at Ocean Hills, we have a barbecue, and we have it at our house. And we invited everyone over, and 2, not 1, but 2 of our leadership team members brought. I just said, bring meat to grill. We'll put the grill. We'll provide other stuff. Bring your own meat to grill. Not 1, but 2 of our leadership team members brought deer that they had killed themselves. My mentor, who I meet with every week, we have lunch, he's 83 years old, and this year he decided he wanted to do something interesting, so he went and shot a bear. So a little bit different. Lauren and Carly Bass have been up a couple times, and when deer walk through our yard, and they do walk through our yard, their response is, look, nature. That's not deer, it's nature. Look at the nature they have up here. It does rain quite a bit in the Pacific Northwest. And surprisingly, it doesn't rain as much as I thought it would, but it stays kind of gray, and there's lots of water, and this time of year, it's unbelievable because the flowers are bigger, and the blueberries are as big as they're about that big, and the raspberries, and it brings this life, but the irony of so much water is the Pacific Northwest is one of the most unchurched areas in the country. In our denomination, the Evangelical Covenant Church, last year, we have 9 areas. You're part of the Pacific Southwest. We're the Pacific Northwest. The Pacific Northwest was the only of our 9 areas that shrunk in size. It's highly educated. The community where I serve is the second most educated community in the country, behind Los Alamos, New Mexico. The national average for your postgraduate degree is about 1%. In Corvallis, it's 24%. My next door neighbors both have their PhD. One teaches, and they're both about 10 years younger. One teaches at the university, and his wife's a stay-at-home mom. And it feels like everyone we meet, like, what's your PhD in? I'm like, Fresno State. But the sadness is that there's so much water in the Northwest, and there seems to be so much life. But in this area, what we're going to talk about today, this whole idea of living water, there doesn't seem to be that connection. There are so many people that are finding life outside of Jesus Christ that it's heartbreaking. The church community is very strong, but they're smaller communities. It's like where it's the darkest, the light shines the brightest. The churches are incredible, but they're smallish. And most of the people know why, or they believe they know why they don't believe, and so they just don't even explore, and it's heartbreaking. Because I encounter so many people that are just drinking from something other than the living water, and they keep drinking and drinking and drinking, and it just doesn't seem to sustain or fill them or offer hope. And so that's what we're going to talk about today, is the good news of this whole idea of living water. And so here's what we're going to do. We're going to read a passage where Jesus says the good news is the living water. Then we go back a little bit and God actually says the same thing. I didn't know this, but God actually uses the same terminology through his prophet Jeremiah. And then we're going to ask the question, well, what does that mean for you and I? God in the Bible makes the distinction that there's two types of water. There's two types of life. There's life that God offers, and there's life that you can find on your own. That's really the only two options. And the life that God offers is sustaining, it's fulfilling, it offers freedom, it offers life, it offers hope. And then there's the other options, and we seem to gravitate towards those other options, trying to find life on our own. It's stagnant, it's false, it's light, but for some reason we keep drinking. Why don't you just pose a question? Think back on this last week, maybe in the last hour, when you engage in some sort of activity or behavior that right after you did it, you said, why did I just do that? Why did I just say this? Why did I just buy this? Why did I just watch this? Why did I just share that story with a friend that I wasn't supposed to share with? Why did I go out with that person when I knew in my heart that there was no reason I should have spent any time with them? Because I knew it was just going to be damaging. Have you identified that? That clear moment when you're like, ooh, I shouldn't have said that. Where we live, it's forest, literally forest. And there's a trail behind our house, paved trail, that goes down to the boys' school. And when I say paved, it's got moss because it rains a lot. And our tradition every day is I gather the boys and we walk to school together. And we take our dog. And sadly, for those of you who know, our dog, Howard, that we had, died yesterday. Yeah, for those of you who knew Howard, he was a legend at Ocean Hills. He came to everything. But yeah, I could pray for a house sitter because she woke up and he was dead, so. Yeah. So, but I know, I've had a day to process, so I can joke now. But Howard, the boys and I, we walked to school, and so we walked down, and there's deer, and he's going nuts, and I chain him up the fence, and he's got a harness, and then one morning, Gage forgot something. And he asked me if I would go back and get it. So Howard and I walk back, and I take him off his leash. We go back to our house. I get what my oldest son, Gage, needed. And we're walking back down, and he's off leash because there's no kids around. And this woman runs up this trail right in front of him. And Howard was this long, like that, this big around, and legs this long. He's half English bulldog, the silliest looking dog, most unthreatening dog you could ever imagine. And this woman runs up and just, whoa, kind of goes off to the side, and I'm walking down behind her. And keep in mind, I had had a bad night's sleep. I was a little tired, and I just said, hey, don't worry. He's super friendly. Don't worry about it. And she turns and looks at me and says, that's what everyone says. And my response, because I'm a pastor, was, are you calling me a liar? I'm not making it as verbatim. And she kind of laughs, and I am just angry. Something about what she said touched something off of me, and she just keeps running down. And I said, don't live in fear. She just runs. And then I try to catch up and say, we're a church, Jesus loves you. But it's one of those moments where you just say, what in my tape that's running in my head, why did I just say that? Why did I just do that? Why did I just look at that? Why did I just engage in that activity? And today, I hope we discover that we do those things because we're drinking from the wrong source. So many times during our day, Jesus is there saying, I offer this living water, yet we turn and we drink muddy water. We respond to people in ways that aren't healthy. We respond to ways that don't give life because we are finding life outside of Jesus Christ. Okay. It should be in your program. It's going to come up behind me. I don't want to go into too much background. If you're new to church, this is a tremendous story to read, and it really sums up the gospel. Jesus and his disciples are making their way through Samaria. And the history of Samaria and Israel, any Jew or Hebrew, they just have this tension that goes on for generations because when they were taken away to Babylon, most of the people were left in the Samaritan area, in their communities, and were challenged to intermarry. And to a Hebrew, you don't intermarry. The purity is just, you hold on to that purity. So there's actually a prayer. There's a number of Jewish prayers, old Jewish prayers. It says, God, thank you for not making me a dog, a woman, or a Samaritan. That's just, I'm scratching the surface on kind of the hatred. So Jesus finds himself through Samaria. His disciples go on to get some food, because it says that. And Jesus has interaction with this woman. So now he had to go through Samaria, picking up in verse 4. Let's go into verse 4. So he came to a town in Samaria called Sychar. Near the plot of ground Jacob had given to his son Joseph. Jacob's well was there, and Jesus, tired as he was from the journey, sat down by the well. It was about noon. Okay, when the Samaritan woman came to draw water, Jesus said to her, will you give me a drink? His disciples had gone into the town to buy food. The Samaritan woman said to him, you are a Jew, and I'm a Samaritan woman. How can you ask me for a drink? For Jews do not associate with Samaritans. Jesus answered her, if you knew the gift of God and who it is that asks you for a drink, you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water. I grew up going to church, and I've read that dozens of times. And for years, I just didn't understand what that meant. What does that mean, living? Is this kind of Harry Potter-ish special water? What does it mean I'm offering you living water? Is he just being creative? Or is he actually offering this woman something? And the woman's response is, sir, the woman said, you have nothing to draw with, and the well is deep. Where can you get this living water? Are you greater than our father Jacob, who gave us the well and drank from it himself, as did also his sons and his flocks and his herds? And Jesus answered, everyone who drinks this water will be thirsty again. But those who drink the water I give them will never thirst. Indeed, the water I will give them will become in them a spring of water welling up to eternal life. The woman said to him, she's engaged at this point, sir, give me this water so that I won't get thirsty and have to keep coming back here to draw water. He told her, go and call your husband and come back. I have no husband, she replied. Jesus said to her, you're right when you say that you have no husband. The fact is, you have 5 husbands, and the man you now have is not your husband. What you have just said is quite true. What do husbands have to do with living water? Jeremiah 2:13. Jeremiah was a prophet a couple hundred years before this interaction. God's chosen people, the Jews, the Hebrews, disobeyed God. They couldn't lose if all they had to do was obey God and not worship other gods. Just obey God. And they chose not to. And so God would send prophets, and Jeremiah is one of these prophets, and he saw his nation fall. He was part of it. And in the early part of the book of Jeremiah, it's really just calling out his people saying, what are you doing? Through Jeremiah, God says this to his people. My people have committed 2 sins. They have forsaken me, the spring of living water, and they have dug their own cisterns, broken cisterns that cannot hold water. And to understand this. I'm going to get right back to this. You have to understand water in the ancient Near East. It's not common like the Pacific Northwest. It doesn't rain as much. And so you have to find a way to capture water. Water is referred to as something that's refreshing. We look at the passages as the deer pants for the streams of water, so my soul pants for you. It's referred to as something that just can refresh us. Water is also referred in the ancient Near East, it's cleansing. It's not just for drinking, but it's for cleansing. In fact, outside the temples and the synagogues, there were these mikvahs, these ritual baths where you would come in and you would clean yourself. If you'd done anything that made you unclean, and it was kind of a symbolism of cleansing your heart before worship. So we might have a hot tub out here, and you would show up, and you might dip in and say, it's kind of cleaning me, but I'm just cleansing my heart before coming into the surface. Now, because that water was so important for cleansing, they used what they called only living water in these baths. And living water had to be taken from these flowing springs or from rainwater, from runoff. It could not be touched. It could not be stagnant, so they called it living water because it was pure, it was clean. And it sets up this dichotomy between there is clean water and there is dirty water in the Bible. Clean water flowed constantly. Dead water was stagnant. Now, when you live in a community where it's hard to live without water, what do? You store water. And so they would build cisterns. Some cisterns were as big as the building themselves. Underneath, they would just store the water right under, and they would draw from it, and they would use it to cook with and drink. But you can imagine already, you've probably already gone there, having water in cisterns is never fresh. In fact, it was never thought of as flowing. It often got dirty and muddy and would taste earthen. And these cisterns, it didn't matter how well you made them, it never was fresh. And it was flowing, and it never was flowing. It was stagnant. Okay, let's look at that passage again. My people have committed 2 sins. They have forsaken me. This is God's voice. They've done 2 things. They have forsaken me. They have sinned against me. And God refers to himself as not the God of thunder, not the God of wrath, not the God of power, but they have forsaken me, the fountain of living water, the fountain of life. So they've sinned against me in 2 ways. Not only have they turned away from it, you know what they've done, my people have done? They have tried to find life on their own. They have dug these cisterns. They have tried to create life on their own, and it just doesn't work. They have taken matters into their own hands. They've tried to capture life, hope, and meaning on their own. Now, let's talk about cisterns, because this is you and I. This is me. We dig cisterns all the time. We try to find life outside of God all the time. And then we wonder why we are unhappy. We wonder why pornography is not fulfilling. We wonder why the brand new car just doesn't feel as good a month later. We wonder why that vacation we just took that on paper is off the charts awesome. We wonder why we are looking forward to the next one. We wonder why we overprogram our kids so much, and yet we still feel small inside. And the answer is because all of those acts, and you can create a list, a mile long, are all ways we have tried to create and find life outside of God. We dig cisterns, and God's very clear. They're broken. They're cracked. It's going to sustain you, and we're good at doing it. My kid excelling in a sport is going to make me feel good until the next season. That A that my child got is going to make me feel good until the next season. That car I just got is going to make me feel good until it gets a scratch. That TV I got is I'm going to feel so good looking at this TV until a bigger one comes out. We dig because we try to find life. And you know what we're doing? We are all created with the image of God as imprinted on us. We all carry that piece. And he's created us with these deeper longings for purpose, for life, for hope, for freedom. But those longings weren't created to be filled by broken cisterns. They were only created to be filled by the living water. And so we're thirsty. And so we dig, and we'll keep going back because We can keep ourselves alive, and we may do this our rest of our lives. But I'm just here to tell you, that's not how we were created to live. Jesus says, I've come to offer you hope and freedom and peace like nothing else can. Why would we drink from anything else? We have to ask that question. It's cheap. Often when we drink from these cisterns, it protects us from feelings we don't want to experience, and so we just keep drinking, and it's available. And when we think this stuff is life-giving, that is really the definition of sin. We're finding life outside of God. So the question I'm going to get to at the end, I'm going to ask it right now. Where are you digging? Where have I been digging? Where have I been holding on to water? My friend says, where are you sucking mud? I'm drinking from what offers little refreshment, but keeps me alive. Okay, now let's go back to the story of the woman. So we've got this interaction. Picking up in verse 10, he says, I knew the gift of God, and if you knew the gift of God and who it is that asks you for a drink, you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water. Sir, the woman said, you have nothing to draw. So she misunderstands, but then go down to 13. Everyone who drinks this water will be thirsty again. But those who drink the water I give them will never thirst again. Indeed, the water I give them will become a spring to the water of life. So Jesus, the good news in this series, the good news, Jesus says, I have living water for you right now. The other question you have to ask, and maybe you're going, I'm not there yet. I just want to pose this question because this will help define it for you. Because living water is still ambiguous. We don't use that in any sort of conversation. And I'll share this. What do you believe is true about you? What do you believe is really true about you? We answer that question every single day. How we answer that question will dictate where we're finding water. You show what I mean? This woman who finds herself in this interaction with Jesus, what do we know about her? What does she believe about herself? Well, we know a couple things about her. We don't know much, but we know a couple things. Somehow, we don't know her story, but somehow the way that she feels valuable and loved is how? Men. You don't have one husband, you have 5, and the one you're with now is not even your husband. So we know a little bit about her story. She has been finding life in men. And that has dictated her decisions. She has heard some sort of tape running in her head. What's true about her? What's true about you? You're only valuable if a man gives you value. You're only valuable if you have this. You're only valuable if you achieve this. You're only valuable if your kid does this. You're only valuable if you move up to this at this pace. She's hearing this, and so she has tried to find life through men. And this is the good news. Now, if I leave you with this, I've left you with guilt, and you feel bad, right? So I won't pray right now. If you had a conversation with me and you began to describe what you've heard about yourself, where you're drinking from broken cisterns, and I challenged you on that, and I said, you know what? You have pretty low self-esteem. What I'm sensing here is that you don't feel so good about yourself, so you're surrounding yourself with junk. What would your response be? Thanks for the conversation. I'm out of here. But when the God of the universe says it to you, and he says it to me, and he offers living water, you know what happens? We look at that and we realize where we've been drinking, and our response is, it becomes so inconsequential and insignificant, I can go tell everyone because I found the truth. Look what this woman does. I mean, it's not in the passage, but I'll tell you what she does. She goes back to the town and goes, let me tell you about a guy who told me everything about myself. He just laid it out, and you've got to come meet him. She found life. When you begin to drink from the living water, you begin to realize that those messages, those tapes about what I really believe of myself isn't true. And what's really true about you is that the God of the universe says, you are valuable, you are made in my image, stuff will not define you. I love you and you're my beloved child. That's what's true. But we hear those other tapes and so we drink because it's easy, it's cheap, and it's available. God says my people did it, and Jesus says, I have this living water. I have the answer to those tapes that are running through your mind. And that's the good news that he offers it to us. Most problems are rooted in this. If we're honest about this, if you go back to that situation that I challenged you with at the beginning, you responded, you acted, you looked at because there's some way in your life you're drinking from not living water. And part of the faith journey, a big part of the faith journey, is gathering with this community, gathering with God and having these times where you're asking these questions and saying, God, I want to know what's really true about me. And when it starts to seep in that living water, we can look at that stuff and not be ashamed of it, not live in shame, not live in fear. And I'll tell you what, as you start to experience this, something's going to happen. You're going to breathe deeper than maybe you ever have in your life because you're about to find freedom and fresh living water. I want to close with a real quick example. Actually, two real brief ones. So I took a page out of Ocean Hill's book, and we have our Christmas service, we have it in this barn. There's literally no walls. And it's in Oregon, so you can imagine all the problems there, but we gut it out because we're pretty tough up there. We grow beards, and ladies don't shave their legs, and we go for it. It actually is so fun. We bring a generator in, we take this whole barn, Christmas lights, and it's an hour, and campfire. It is so fun. One year it snowed, and we get out and we sing, you're all invited, by the way. We sing Silent Night, we turn the generator off, turn the lights off, and just hold candles. But to do that, I have to go through the Parks and Rec department. And so I have had this contact with a woman in the Parks and Rec department. She's in her early 20s. And so while I was there, she was asking me about it. Well, how did it go? I was returning the key, and I said, it was great. I said, you want to see a picture? And I showed her a picture, and there's a picture, and there's one of our, someone in our worship team with drums. And she goes, oh, you have drums? And my response, and there's a neighborhood around. I said, yeah, but they weren't loud. She goes, no. I grew up going to church. I went on mission trips, but I don't go anymore. And then she said to me, we just back and forth, and then she said, let me just be clear. God basically has to hit me on the head with a hammer to kind of go to the next level, and he often does that, but I need to be aware that he's hitting me with a hammer. And he was at this time, and I said to her, well, do you ever want to talk about faith stuff? And she goes, I would love that. So this girl and I sat down, and we had coffee, and I have probably had coffee maybe 7 or 8 times with this girl. And what I began to hear from her story, and I'll just give you a brief excerpt, is when she was a teenager, her parents were adopting some more kids, and they asked them, they were all old enough, and she asked them, we're going to adopt these kids, what are your thoughts about this? And she said, I told my parents, no. I don't want any more siblings. I was aware enough to say, I appreciate what you're doing, but no, we're not healthy as a family. And her parents went ahead and adopted the family, or adopted these children. And she said, the message she got very early on in life is that she is not valuable, that her opinion doesn't matter. And that led to, she found herself finding love and affirmation from boys. She said, when I was 14 years old, I was raped by my boyfriend, who told me, you're not worthwhile, no one's ever going to love you. And she's telling me this. I'm not these probing questions, I'm just asking her, tell me a little about your story, and she goes right into it. And as our conversations have progressed, lately, I asked her about she's dating a couple guys now, and I said, well, what's that like? And every single guy that she has dated always ends with, well, he's crazy. I might have to get a restraining order. I mean, and I said to her, I said, do you realize that every person you date is a bad person? She goes, yeah. And then I just asked, I threw it out there. I didn't know if it was going to be right. But I'll just tell you who we are as a church at the Well. We believe when we ask how you're doing, we need to sit there and listen to the response, and you may just give us a quick answer, but that's what defines us, who we are at the Well. We believe that being part of Living Water is listening when someone says they're hurting. And I don't think the church is doing that today. So that's where God's called us to. And so I got to be part of this. And I said, you don't think you're valuable enough to be loved, do you? And she lost it. And she just wept at this coffee shop. And I share that story because I think it's an example of she got these messages at a young age that she can only be worthwhile if she's loved by a man and she's made to feel this way. And that tape keeps running over and over in her mind. And so she is drinking from all of these fountains, these broken cisterns that aren't fresh, that aren't clean. And they sustain her and they give her a little bit of life. She feels good about herself when she's got a boyfriend. And then it falls apart every single time. Jesus says, I am the living water. And I offer you this living water. The good news is, I realized in our conversation, I'm like, I'm going to kind of pass you off to a woman, a friend of mine, who has had some similar experiences. And this girl plays on our softball. We have a softball team. And she now plays on our softball team. She comes occasionally. And what's been exciting is now she's got this church community and she doesn't come to all the time, that has just come around her and loved her and is showing her what it looks like to have living water. Now you think, well, but I've got it all together. I mean, I got it all together. I read the Bible every day. My son, 2 years ago, we started playing baseball, and he tried out for minors. And it's a little bit different in Oregon. Maybe because when it rains, you do everything. You don't stop. And my son tried out, and the short version is his best friend didn't make it up to minors. And I remember going to him, watching tryouts, and I just noticed something I felt this tension as I'm watching him, just this deep, deep tension in my own soul, my own heart. So we get the phone call that he made it. We get the phone call that his friend didn't make it. And so we were just talking to him about what it looks like, how he loves his friend, and how does he care for his friend, and just. And then in the conversation, I asked my son, I said, and I had really been exploring what this whole living water thing is in my own life. Where am I finding life? Where am I drinking? I wish I could say that I got living water all the time, but there are so many places where I bend down, put my face in this muddy water because it's available right away. And I said to my son, I said, Gage, well, what do you think would have happened if you didn't make it? Would you have cared? You know what my son's response was? I wish I could say this is made up. He looks at me and goes, Dad, I was worried about how you would react if I didn't make it. If there's a moment of just breaking down in front of your child, that was it. It took everything in my heart to hold it together. And I share that because that's just an example of how we drink from broken cisterns. I have been discovering in my own life, my value of sports, my identity, that I was putting so much weight. And I'm glad I learned it when he was only 8 years old. But I find my identity in my kids. I find my identity in how well Gage does. I find whether he makes it or doesn't make it. And I feel it. Because I'm hearing a tape that what's true about me is that I'm not good unless I'm succeeding in sports or the person that represents me is succeeding in sports. That's what it means to drink from broken cisterns. And that's what I was doing. And that's just one. If we had 5 hours, I'd go on, but I need to wrap it up here. I want to challenge you right now. Where do you drink from broken cisterns? Maybe you can't identify something right now, but the next time you come to that decision where you're saying, why did I just do that? I want to invite you to stop and pause. And maybe I'm going to trust the Holy Spirit's just going to say living water. Why did I just do that? What tape is playing in my mind that said I needed to respond this way, that I needed to be with that guy, that I needed to be with that girl, that I needed to buy this or do this or be this? What is playing in your mind? And then apologize. God, forgive me from drinking from anything but you. And help me discover what it means to drink from the living water. And I believe we do that personally. I mean, if God is really who he says he is, he wants to engage in that conversation with who we are. He wants you to know who you really are. He wants you to know who you are created to be and who I'm created to be. The Bible seems to support that. And because he may not be walking right here in the physical form, here's the physical form right here. Here's the community that walks alongside one another. And you say, let me just tell you what just happened to me. I said this to my wife, and as soon as it came out, I went, why did I say that? And you share that with someone, and that someone walks alongside you and said, let's talk about that. Tell me what's going on. And you work backwards. I know this is a lot, but I want to challenge. If I get one shot to talk to groups, it's what God's put on my heart for the year, and this is it. for our own community. And I thought, oh, if I get this opportunity to share it with any community, and I was praying about it. It's this. God offers living water. Why would we drink? Why would the woman have 5 husbands? Why would we have 5 husbands? And we do it all the time. Let's pray. Jesus, thank you for offering us that living water. Thank you for being that voice that can speak into anything that we hear about us that isn't true. Thank you for being the God of the universe who can shine a light on where we drink from broken cisterns, and you being so good and so loving that we don't have to live in shame, but we can shout, I have found freedom. I have found living water. So God, in our own stories, and I know it's represented in every person sitting here, God, shine that light on where we drink from broken cisterns. Show us that place. And God, I pray for, Holy Spirit, the empowerment to move forward into a place where we drink only from you. We listen to only what's true about us, what you say. That we are beloved. That you are the hope of the world. That you offer freedom and peace. That you will not forsake us. And that you are always as close as a whisper. So God, help us to be a community that drinks deep from the living water. Jesus, we pray this in your name, in light of your death and resurrection. So in your name we pray. Amen.
So good to see old friends, isn't it? Great word.